Let's go. Guys, welcome to VITL Live. Here where we teach you how to sell solar in uncommon ways on an uncommon platform here with Instagram Live. We got the pleasure of having DeJong with us today. Let's go. So it's going to be sick today. Jai just came off of an amazing trip, had 16 people. They opened up a market in Lubbock, Texas. And
Texas, yep.
Killed it. Had 16 people out there. They did 35 clean deals, had a 2.3 PRA, and personally, you sold how many?
16.
16. Let's go. So
good trip.
It's not a small trip. And what's so big about it is that you were opening up a new market.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that might be a good spot to start because I know it wasn't what you initially thought the market was, right?
No, it was
you
not.
tried to do a lot of research and stuff, but in the end, and you planned every day, all your trainings and stuff, like you were saying. But when you got there, it wasn't what you thought it was. What were some of the hiccups you guys ran into when you first got there?
Yeah, so we did a lot of market research, about 2 months, trying to figure out where we were going to go, and really catered everything to one specific market. When we got to that market, it was just not what we planned on. But plans rarely go according to the plan. There's always a lot of changes.
Yep.
And one of the big things, and we talked about this earlier, I'm really, really big on a quote that says, divorce the outcome and marry the process. And living in that process, it just inspires more creativity when you're not so much worried about, the outcome and not reaching that certain outcome or whatever it may be. So it gave us the ability to pivot, first day in market. We thought everything was going to be one way. I got a call from our regional, and he told me that it was not what we thought it was going to be. And a lot of the research that we did was incorrect, or it just hadn't taken effect yet. So it kind of dumped everything on its head. But, it was taking that what could be negative news and turning it into a positive and spinning that to the team. Everybody was super excited about it, something that could have been really, really bad. We thought the market was deregulated.
Okay.
Our pitch, everything that we had planned on was to go into a deregulated market.
Jeez.
And on day one, about 30 minutes before our first correlation, I got a call that the market has not been deregulated yet. And we were able to use it beautifully and kind of incorporated that into our pitch in a really, really good way. And also was able to take that information back to the team and get everybody super excited on it rather than, worried, because everybody is already worried enough in the new market. But yeah, it worked out.
Because a lot of times when you go to these new markets, a lot of like the teams feeling uncertain. They're like, "Whoa, I'm hitting a lot of old people. I don't know if," and they're like projecting this also. They're like, "Wow, this area sucks. I don't know." And then like, it takes a lot of like grit and kind of like a lot of also like kind of tactical awareness to be able to realize where the team is struggling and kind of nipping those like not gossip, but like kind of like negative vibes in the bud early on. Talk to me about kind of what you did as a leader. Like I know you have this this process, focus on the process, not the outcome, but talk to me as a leader. What does it take to like open up a market successfully, and especially to make such big pivots like that when it's not like you thought it was?
I think it takes a lot of it goes back to mindset, your own personal mindset. I mean, we all were prepared going into a new market. Everybody was, nervous or excited to go into a new market, but also, scared shitless. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Everybody was real nervous, and we got a lot of those nerves out. But I mean, what we did, communication was really, really good. We overly communicated to make sure that everybody was on the same page. If somebody was doing something that wasn't working or was working, we made sure to mesh those two together and find a good solution for it. And we made pivots. I mean, we went out with an entire itinerary. All my trainings are kind of pre-planned day over day. And, 90% of it, we threw it out the window because that's not what we needed to focus on that day. It's just staying, real in tune with the market. And again, we had no idea what we were getting into. We spread everybody out trying to look for a deregulated market. We didn't even know if the deregulation was even a thing that was happening at this point. Jeez. Had zero information to go on. And then every single night, we were just going out collecting data and bringing that data back so that we, you know, I truly believe the battle is won in the general's tent.
Okay.
And having all that data and being able to find good solutions and to find a good spin on whether it's the pitch or the close, or, you know, we had so many no-shows, but having all that data, collecting it, and then being able to move and pivot accordingly and to have it be successful was a huge win.
Yeah, because I remember I talked to you like on day 7 and I was like, man, you're killing it out there. This is amazing. And you're like, man, I'm exhausted. You're like, I am so exhausted. You were telling me you're like up to like 12, 1 in the morning talking to people, like different closers each night and setters, trying to get them just in the mindset. Yeah. And I don't think people realize just how much it requires to take a team and open up a market.
Yeah, no, it took a lot of mental capital to go into a new market that is very uncertain. I'm uncertain. It's not like I'm an expert in that market either. But, you know, all arrows do point to the top, and to be able to follow good leaders and have those leaders, you know, help train and develop me makes it real easy to go down and develop my people as well. And we have no shortage of great leadership within this company. But it took a lot of mental capital to deal with all of the problems. And when people are nervous, they have all the exact same problems that we've had knocking on doors. It's the same exact thing, but in a new market, those problems become much, much bigger to a lot of people. So, you know, putting the cap on that, managing it, and putting those fires out, and, you know, showing up to the appointments and making sure that they're closing, making sure that the whole team's doing well, it definitely, you know, it took a lot out of me mentally. So I think we talked on like day 6 or 7, and it felt like day, you know, 12. For sure.
Let's go. Dude, that is awesome. And that wasn't even like your only struggle. Well, I think what's most important, what's so impressive about this like conversation is the fact that like the deregulation was an issue. Then you hit day 2. And what was your sit ratio? You were telling me at like day 2.
So, you know, there was no shortage of appointments.
Texas people are nice.
Texas people are very nice. Texas people are too nice, and they don't like to show up to their appointments that they set. It's the nicest way to get rid of you. Yeah. We had like a 70% no-show rate, maybe even higher than that on some days. Yeah. That was crazy. Day 2 and 3 was atrocious.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, it takes that kind of like, as a leader, keeping a pulse on the team, knowing where the numbers are at. It's like, okay, we're struggling with the sit ratio. So then how did you guys kind of adapt to make that, to like curb that sit ratio? What kind of what did your trainings look like?
So that's, you know, that kind of goes back to staying within the process. And when you're within the process, I mean, we went into that market knowing that we were going to fail a lot, and we were just trying to fail as quickly as possible. And we were on the doors, you know, a lot longer than we normally had been. We also had longer correlations than we had been. So, you know, when I say we send everybody out, we collect that data, then we look at the board and we're realizing that there's not a lot of no-shows. We pivoted really early on and realized that same days were going to be, you know, paramount. And I think 75% of our volume came from that. So immediately we kind of adjusted to that, and then just letting people know, you know, calling them out in a very nice way. And going back to the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, you know, we would let them know once we set the appointment. We knew that we needed to tie them down to get them to show up. Yeah. And we did it in, you know, I can be semi-aggressive by nature. So my tie down was, hey, Texas, this is a great place. People are super, super nice here, but they also love not showing up to their appointments. We've set a ton of appointments in this market. And had a lot of no-shows, more than I've ever seen. So if we set this appointment, you're not going to be that person. You're actually going to show up here, right? Because if not, let's save my time, save your time, and we'll just cancel the appointment now. And it's wrapping a grenade in velvet, right? Because you're kind of slapping them in the face, but you're not talking about them. You're talking about all the other Texans that didn't show up to their appointments. And that tie down, you know, started to work real well. Gold. And then, you know, same days were king. So if we had a calendar, again, looking at the data, if we have a calendar full of appointments, already in my mind, 50% of them are not going to be there. So if a same day, you know, got in the way, those appointments took the back seat for sure.
Oh, I love that. So giving them kind of like that back door of being like, hey, this is what we're finding in the area, but don't. That's kind of the training.
Yeah,
you would
opening the back door and saying, if you're not going to show up to this appointment like these other people haven't showed up to theirs, let's just cancel now. And giving them that out.
That's sweet. What other kind of trainings would you guys do in correlation to kind of help the set to sit ratio?
We did a lot of, like I said, our correlations were 2 hours on certain days. Like we had to take breaks in between correlation just because I knew that the team,
the training,
they needed it. The trainings, yeah, I knew they needed it, and we trained on so many different topics, and one of them is people, especially when you're selling in a market where it's, the weather isn't crazy right now. Their bills aren't crazy high out there yet. And it's hard for a setter when you're pitching somebody, if they say their bill's low, their last bill was $70, and that is a low bill, but you're not taking into account what their high bill is. And that's one of those things where they kind of shelf their problem. So one of the ways that we got around that was kind of bringing the pain and the problem to the forefront of their mind, because us as human beings, we tend to shelf a lot of our problems.
Yeah,
we all have problems, and we don't wake up every day and start thinking about those problems, and these people are no different. So we kind of dug a little bit, and we were, we asked a lot of questions. Well, my bill's not so high, or whatever the objection was. We're not interested. Okay, well, nobody remembers their low bill because it's not a problem. But let's talk about the problem. Let's talk about the problematic bill. What was the highest bill you've ever seen? And then it starts to get their emotions. Man, it was $350, the highest I've ever seen. And then you can kind of get a gauge for what their average is. And they might be here and they think their bill's low and it's not a problem because right now it's not. But the problem still exists. It's just a couple months in the future. So bringing that problem, more to the forefront of their mind, getting their emotions involved, talking about training, deregulation and the fear of deregulation. And it's, and the government's real good at telling you something's going to be great and it's not. And every single person agrees with that. So it's real easy to gain that trust and credibility when you talk about those things.
Oh, that's sweet. I'm reading the book 7 Habits again, and something that he talks about is in moments of difficulty, it seems like people fall to their values of what they're standing for instead of rising to their goals or whatever. I know you've talked about some of your team values. Can you talk a little bit about that for everyone so they can understand kind of how that came about, kind of how you cultivated that?
Yeah, I mean it's real easy to lead when everybody's following kind of the same set of rules.
Yeah. And
our rules, it's our culture. Our culture is who we are and what we do, and we have core values as a team. And some of those core values is just trust, integrity, respect, love. And we have, the list goes on to about 10, but everybody, and it's one of the main slides on our training deck, is just to talk about the core values of the team.
Oh, I love that.
And everybody kind of knows what they are, and they what are your standards as a team? And we know what our standards are as a team because of that, because we train on it. So when everybody knows what the standards are, they don't fall below those standards, and they try to implement and excel those standards and pass it along to the new team members as well. So the culture is absolute, one of the most important things for sure.
Oh, that's sick. I love hearing that, dude. And I'm wondering, especially as a leader going into a new market, you have all these people being like, Jai, was this the right move? I don't know if this is a good area and stuff like that. What do you do personally to keep your headspace clear and focused so you can bring that consistency to inconsistent situations, as Aaron always says? But like, what do you do to kind of, or what would you say to people and leaders and individuals to help keep their headspace clean and focused?
A lot of it just goes into my personal, I knew it was the right decision, right? There was a lot of different markets we could go to, and I'm a firm believer, whatever market we do go into, as long as we plan accordingly, we would have had the same result, right? And I think that when people are uncertain, you just have to be that much more certain. They may not know everything that you know, and it's your job, just like it is when you're in a sale, it's your job to portray the story and the vision. and you kind of have to be a visionary in certain ways. And I think that's where that transfer of confidence kind of came. A lot of people going into it were absolutely excited because of that, and 2 days into it, they were absolutely scared and nervous because of it. And it's that whole mood swings of emotions that you feel whenever there's uncertainty. The uncertainty, it never goes away. It's there one day, it's not there the next day. You have a good day, you set 3 appointments. The next day, none of those appointments show up. Now you're shaking in your boots again. So that's managing that is just, you have to be certain in what you're doing, and we planned for it and we trained for it. Plans don't always go according to the plan, and we know that. So we knew we were going to fail. We knew we had to fail fast, and we knew we were going to have to adjust, and that's kind of what we did.
So cool, dude. I love your team. Everyone on your team is so cool.
Yeah.
Owen, Danny, and Katie, and everyone.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Talk to everyone, just because a lot of people are on different teams. What does it feel like to be a part of your team, like on there when people are out there? And what do you think makes the difference versus people on your team and versus not?
I couldn't really speak on that in too much detail. I don't know what it's like to be part of any other team. On our team, I'm real big on just trust and loyalty, and I lead more with trust and love. And I'm probably not the nicest person always, and I definitely have my moments. I mean, there was one trip where I put out a spiff and nobody got it, and it was $100 bill, and I took that $100 bill, I ripped it up in front of the whole team, and everybody's like, "What the hell are you doing?" It's like, you guys don't want the spiff, so now we're going to sit here and train for 2 hours until somebody hits it, right? And those moments, it's hard to go into moments like that if you don't have the trust, the respect, and the loyalty and the love from the team. But all of that stuff, I'd say that, the biggest difference with our team, and I don't even know if it's a difference, but it's love, trust, loyalty, and respect. And that is felt throughout the entire team. If someone shows up on the team, they don't have those core values, or they don't follow them, they're not going to be part of the team very long, right?
Yeah.
And that's happened too, where people come out for 1 or 2 days and I send them home because they're not in line. There's nothing more important to the team than that culture. And so I'd say our culture, that's what it is.
Oh, I love that, dude. And you feel that whenever we come visit your teams, it's always like that love is there, and you guys have these like dinners, and it's wild, dude.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
It's a good time.
Well, let's get into like the meat and potatoes of it, because I know a lot of people just want to kind of know a little bit more of the secret sauce of what you're doing in Texas that's having so much success, especially with the term that you've been using is reverse selling. Kind of talk to us about that term. What do you mean by that, and why is it so important?
Yeah, so reverse selling is, people love to buy, but they don't love to be sold. If somebody feels like they're being sold, more often than not, you're probably not going to get that sale, or they're going to have a good amount of buyer's remorse following that. So reverse selling, what it is essentially, and it also leads into building value. The best way to build value in your product is to devalue whatever product they currently have. And right now we're devaluing utility companies, and it's real easy to devalue and find a lot of problems with the utility company. So rather than talking about all of the great things that solar has to offer and, savings and all of this stuff, which a lot of these people aren't saving a ton of money, I'm going to go in, I'm going to devalue everything that they have. So at this point, I'm not selling them bells and whistles. You show up to a car dealership, they're going to take you on a test drive and do all these things to try to get you as excited as possible. But that's not really how you build value in something. It's to devalue what they currently have. So by the time we get to our product, which is solar, it just looks more valuable. And they start to piece together, the positives of solar versus their utility, because at this point, their utility is completely devalued. They don't like it. They want to get away from it. Ever increasing rates. You can look at the history of electric rates, and they have skyrocketed over the past decade. Over the past decade, it's gone up 120% globally. And having that information, going in, sharing that information with them, especially for Texas, talking about the grid did shut down. I mean, people were out of power for up to 3 weeks in certain areas. 700 and 46 people died during that freeze.
It's crazy.
A lot of them were older. Some of them had illnesses. They're dependent on these devices. They have zero electricity. How would you feel if that was your loved one that passed away when the grid shut down? And get their emotions kind of going into it. And then once you're done just demolishing and devaluing the utility company, you can have a fixed bill, fixed rate. Here's what it looks like. And it's obviously at that point it's better. So it's, selling the product, actually selling it is maybe 10% of the total close. The other 90% is just devaluing what they currently have. Because if they don't think there's a problem, they're not going to want your solution. So they have to know what the problem is and where it comes from, and that it's not going away.
That's awesome. So instead of like in your example, theoretically taking them to the new car and being like, look, power seats, all these headlights, all this is amazing.
Instead of doing that, I'm going to talk about the Honda Civic they showed up in, and it doesn't have power windows, and it doesn't have Bluetooth, and there's tears in the seats. There's dents in the side of the car. It's got X amount of miles on it. I'm going to devalue that car. And all of a sudden, this Honda Civic looks better than that one.
Oh, I love that.
Because it doesn't have those things.
What would you say to people too? Because I know we had a lot of teams in Texas. To those who didn't experience like the grid, like you tell someone, you're like, yeah, so with the grid freeze and everything, like with the grid shutting down.
Yeah, if they weren't affected by it.
Yeah.
So the area that we were in, they didn't lose any power.
Oh, okay.
And it's always better when they do, because then you can take them back to February of 2021 and have them relive that current situation. And it's easier to kind of bring out that pain and those emotions that surrounded it. Because not having electricity, even for 24 hours, I'd be lost. I wouldn't know what to do. And same thing with these people. So if they didn't experience any power outage, which nobody did in our market, you kind of talk about, and we kind of pivoted, and again, deregulation. They didn't lose power because they weren't in a deregulated market. So what we talked about, well, you guys didn't lose power, correct? But the rest of Texas did. I'm from Utah, and it was the talk of our town when that happened. They called it the freeze, but it didn't shut down because everything was frozen. It shut down because everybody used more and more electricity, and there's not unlimited electricity to give. So once you tap that out, everything shuts down, causes a ton of damages, ton of problems. People are dying, right? Which is all true. And you kind of talk about the fact that, well, when you guys do deregulate, now you're going to be susceptible to that. And, imagine what it would be like not to have power for just 24 hours. You're going to your car to stay warm and charge your phone, or to stay cool, because it could also happen when it's really, really hot outside. And kind of get their emotions involved and paint the picture. I mean, the best way to relay a message to somebody is to tell a good story, and you got to be convincing when you tell that story. So if you can tell a story about a power outage and how problematic that would be, and how the rates are going to continuously increase because the grid could very well shut down again. You've also seen 190% increase in your population here. I think half of California moved to Texas, right? And, obviously more people living here, more people using electricity, more electric cars on the road. Every kid in every household has an iPad, iPhone, everything's plug-in. You don't really use batteries for anything besides your remote now. We're using more and more electricity, and you build the fear. It's time to get off of the grid, in the sense where you're not pulling your electricity from the grid. You have your own source, which is going to ultimately mitigate the likelihood that the grid shuts down again.
I love that, dude. So regardless of whether they experienced the Texas freeze or anything in February, doesn't matter. You can still tell the story of being like, well, imagine what it would feel like to not be able to charge your car or charge your phone and have to go to your car for that.
And a lot of people know somebody out there that probably did lose power. Even if they don't, it's really easy because it did happen. You're not making it up. They know that what you're saying is true. It's easy to paint the picture to them about ultimately what that could look like if they don't make any changes.
Oof. I love that, dude. That is awesome. So regardless, you just bring them into that and have them tell a story. You either tell the story of imagine what it would be like, or you have them, do you know anyone who experienced that?
And you can tell you the story. And you can play on those emotions. I mean, you can listen to a good song telling a story and it's going to hit home. You can watch a good movie and cry from watching that movie because the story is so good, even though you didn't experience it. So you just have to take that into the home.
Oh, that's sick. So a lot of it isn't selling these bells and whistles. It's just it's devaluing what they currently have and helping them see that this is a problem.
It's negative reverse selling. You take them, it's like a pendulum. So you get them scared as possible, then you get them excited as possible, and then you take it away because we don't know if they qualify.
Yeah, talk to me a little about that. I know that's a big part of your trainings that you do is Newton's Law. is talking about that. Like, talk to me about kind of the cadence of emotions of how you're taking them throughout the close, and what's your ideal way of kind of walking them into the close. Like,
so Newton's first law is an object in motion stays in motion. Going into a home, if we're looking at a clock, everybody starts at a 6, which is just neutral. 3 o'clock is excited, and 9 o'clock is fearful. They're like living in the problem, or they're living in excitement way over here. And you don't really want to sell somebody that's really pissed off or like is really fearful. And you also don't want to sell somebody that's just like way overly excited. Number one, they'll probably fail credit. And number two, that's how you get buyer's remorse, because that excitement's going to wear off the minute that you leave the home. But all of those emotions matter. So you want to kind of sell them at neutral, but you want to kind of push them in both directions. And the selling is, the bells and whistles is just talking about solar and savings and everything's so exciting and all this stuff, but they don't understand that there's a problem yet. So you want to talk about the problem as much as you possibly can, get them living in that problem, build their emotions and get them, like really bought into the idea of everything that we know to be true. The grid shuts down, the rate increases, all of the problems. And then you can kind of swing them back into the excitement level, which is real easy. It's easy to get somebody excited when they weren't excited over here.
Yeah.
And then from excitement, you want to take them back down kind of to the middle ground. And when they're real excited, the way to do that is just to do a takeaway and let them know, we don't know if you qualify. Bring them back to that neutral ground where now they're only going to be excited again if they find out that they qualify. And then it kind of becomes easy from there.
Dude, that's sweet. So there's like a whole gamut of emotions you're trying to have them experience while in the close, not just necessarily getting on the yes train and going solar, but you're trying to get them into the fear mindset of like, and seeing the problem, how bad it really is, and then getting them excited about the consistency and what it can bring to their life.
Right, because it's real hard to get somebody excited about something if they don't know that there's a problem or whatever it is. If they know that there's a big problem and they feel that pain, and you're shoving your thumb into that bruise of their utility company until they say uncle, then it's easy to get them excited about something. And if you qualify, then we can help you. And at that point, it's them making the decision and not you selling them.
Oh, I love that, dude. So that makes it's like more empowered for the customer. They feel like they're making the choice instead of being like trying to sell me. They're just like, that's sick. And
it makes the transition and asking for the sale a lot easier, because at that point they're asking you for the sale. The best words to hear is, what are the next steps? How do we get out of this world that you just created that I didn't even know existed, right?
But they're only going to ask, what are the next steps if you've built enough pain in the problem?
There's got to be pain. When you're building value, you got to highlight all their current problems, because the reality is we're not saving these people tons of money.
Yeah.
If any, some people are actually paying more. And it's not as sexy as, going in somebody's house and saving them $240 or $100, whatever it is. Even $20 is awesome.
Yeah.
They have to know that there's a current issue, there's a current problem, and live in that problem. And I'm not talking about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm talking about 30 to 40 minutes of just highlighting all of the issues.
What are some ways, some quick tip ways? I know we talked about, you bring up the freeze and having telling the story about the freeze, but what are other ways that you build pain and bring out the emotion in the sale to get the person to actually see that they have a problem, to devalue their current product before wanting to sell?
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, you want them to feel the pain and feel the problems with their current utility. You also want them to feel the pain and feel the problems with the grid and why the grid shut down. You want it to make sense to them, in the sense where the more people that are going solar, the less people are pulling their electricity from the grid, and the less likely it is to shut down again. Because if it does, it's going to cause a ton of issues. So a lot of ways to do that. And it's kind of like, Tony Robbins, I'm not your guru, right?
Okay.
So there's the first guy with the red shoes, and that's all great, and he saves that guy's life, and everybody's like crowd surfing this guy around. It's awesome to see.
Okay.
Nobody's better at this than Tony Robbins. The second girl, she stands up, and it's like, he's like, why are you here? She says she wants to lose 8 pounds.
Okay.
And he asks her a series of like 5 or 10 questions. as to what the real problem is, because that's not the root of the problem. The reality is she'd probably lose the 8 pounds. That's a Band-Aid, and her problems are still going to exist. She's probably then going to want to lose another 8 pounds, or then think that she needs to change her appearance. But he asked her those 5, 10 questions. By the end of it, she's bawling, she's crying, she's hugging her mom, she's calling her dad. And, you know, she had some insecurity issues because her father just didn't love her enough. And she stood up by saying, I just want to lose 8 pounds. By the end of it, she's crying. So it's kind of the same process where us as human beings, we shelf our problems. We don't think about them. And what Tony Robbins did, he didn't just weed whack and put a Band-Aid on it. He dug to the root and really like found the real problem, to where they were very, very emotional, and kind of fixed that problem as a whole. And it's the same thing if somebody says, you know, they're not interested or they have a low bill. You got to dig and find that problem and bring it to the surface. And you can only do that by asking, you know, more of the right questions. And it's different with everybody of how to get to the actual problem. And one of them is just, you know, let's not talk about this bill that's $70. Let's talk about your high bill. How much was that one? How much has your rates gone up over the past 2 years? I bet you haven't even noticed that they've increased, because most people don't. It's really hard to notice any type of an increase on a bill that's never the same month over month. Little do you know, over the last 5 years, you're paying $100 more for your electricity, and you didn't even feel the pinch, because they don't want you to feel the pinch, and they're good at what they do. So let me show you what they do, and I'll show you how to get away from it.
That's fire, dude.
Yeah.
I love that. So talk to me a little bit more about when you're like, there's a lot of people who are shifting from California and looking at these other markets right now, and they're nervous because they're not saving what people could save people in California, right? So I'm just kind of curious, what advice would you give reps who are nervous about like being like, man, I don't know how to, if I'm not saving people money, how am I going to sell this product? How do you sell on value instead of just selling on savings?
You know, I would tell those people to devalue what they currently have, right? I mean, you're not going in and you're not selling them a brand new car. You're not going to get them super excited about saving a bunch of money. That was kind of where people were in California, was just going straight in, talking about savings, and that was the hook that got people excited enough to at least sit down just talking about savings. So again, it's more of, and you're just telling the truth. It's more of a fear-based, it's more of a devaluation of what they currently have, devaluing the utility company. I would tell them to do research on the utility company, whatever the market is, figure out all of the problems, and then find a good, simple way to highlight those problems without overcomplicating it, because confused minds don't make decisions.
Okay.
And you want to keep it as simple as possible if you want these people to ultimately make a decision.
Talk to me more about that. The keep it. I mean, I know you live by that principle. The keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple, sweetheart.
Sweetheart. Let's go.
Depends on who you're talking to. Yeah, it's you can use idioms, which I'm real big on idioms and analogies to kind of cross bridges. I could sit here and tell you a whole story about, 2 paragraphs, or I could just tell you something very simple, like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And that message, you're just automatically, everybody understands what that means. So rather than explaining it, going into all the weeds, and, I'm not going to answer people's questions unless they ask them. I'm not going to go super in detail about how net metering works and how all these other things work if they don't ask. That might be part of my post-sale process after they've already made the decision. But as I'm going for the sale, I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to get too far into the weeds. I'm not going to try to confuse them. I'm not going to give them, different options. I'm going to go in there with only one option. I'm going to live and die by that one option, because if I believe that that's the only option, so will they. If I'm giving them all these other options, then obviously they're going to tell me, you know what, I probably got to think about this, because I would too. I don't want them to have options. If I go to buy, ice cream and there's 31 flavors, I'm going to take 10 minutes to kind of figure it out. I'm going to taste test them. And, I might be full by the time I leave anyways. I have all the information I need. If I go in, there's only chocolate and I want ice cream, I'm going to get chocolate. I just give them one option, keep it as simple as possible, and make it as easy, for them as I can, for them to make a decision.
And don't you actually even say it in the close? I remember you're saying like you tell them like, hey, I'm going to keep this as simple as possible.
Yeah. So when I open it up, I just say, hey, so just so you know, I'm going to follow the KISS method. Have you ever heard of that? Keep it simple, stupid, or sweetheart, depends on who you're talking to. And I'll even say it just like that to get a quick laugh out of them. And I'll just say, listen, I'm not going to go in, this is really an easy option. Instead of paying these guys for electricity, you're going to pay these guys, and there's a lot of benefits. We'll get to that. At worst case scenario, you're just going to learn a lot about how electricity works and how solar works. Best case scenario, you're going to know what the right decision is when we're done, but I'm going to keep it simple for your sake and mine so that you can understand a lot of stuff that would normally go over your head. Is that fair? And, they say yes, and then they give me the green light to make it as simple for them as possible.
I love that, dude. That's amazing. Yeah, because I feel like that's like a huge thing nowadays is everyone just tries to overcomplicate it, and they're talking about the NEM 3.0 and or trying to like bring things into these other closes that don't really matter.
Yeah,
and you're like, just keep.
Well, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect. When you're super confident and your competence is really, really low, you always perform well. That's why rookies it's like an ongoing. It's not even a joke on our team. Every single time someone is brand spanking new, they always perform really, really well. And they know nothing. They know nothing. Never knocked a door before. I mean, all of our top rookies outperformed some of the people that have been there doing it for a while, because the more competent you get, the more information you get, you start to feel like an expert, right? And your sales always go low. They call it the amateur learning curve or the Dunning-Kruger effect. And then you have to hang out down here while you're digesting that information, trying to figure out why you're not performing the same. In reality, you're just overcomplicating it. You're giving them too much information because the new person who's never knocked a door before, they know nothing. You tell them to go in this direction, knock as many doors as you can, talk to as many people as you can, and recite the same pitch that you've learned, which probably sucks.
Yeah.
But they're going to do well because they're just confident in it. Their competence is low, and the smarter you get, the harder it becomes to know what information to give and what information to hold on to. And 99% of the time, less is more.
I feel that, dude. That happened to me on my first trip too. I felt like I overcomplicated it for a while and then just kept it back to the roots, back to the basics.
Yep. Always go back to the fundamentals.
So one last question, but we want to open it up for questions. So if anyone has any questions they want to ask Jai, just post them in the chat. But let me ask you just one more question as people are posting in the chat. But 16 deals, you close 16 deals. That's a big milestone. That's awesome. That's it. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have these kind of glass ceilings they put on their mind, and it's hard to break those self-limiting beliefs and break those like break the 10 deal mark, break the 8 deal mark, break the 15, break the 20 deal mark in 10 days. Talk to me about how you break those glass ceilings and what advice you give to your own team, like about how to break those glass ceilings to evolve to that next level.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it's the law of the lid. Everybody imposes their own self-limiting beliefs on themselves with a lot of different things. And the reality is, you're only as good as you think you are. And if you think you're going to hit a certain number and like that's your goal number, that's as many as you're going to do. And you look at other people. I mean, there's people that have sold far more than I have. And to me, that's the lid. And I don't even think that's the lid. I think that lid is probably 30 in a 10-day trip. I think that we're going to see that very, very soon.
It's like the Roger Bannister 4-minute mile or whatever.
Yep. And a lot of it is just preparing, training, and knowing kind of what you're getting yourself into before you even enter every home. You kind of have to have an idea of, I'm mentally prepared, and it's different depending on what their house looks like, what their name is, how long they've lived there. Any information that I get is so valuable. So as far as like the lid, I think that is just a mindset thing, and I think that people just need to level up. And for other people, I follow the Pareto principle, and in 2 ways. One is, I'm spending a lot of time with the top 20%. We're staying up real late. We're going through trainings. It took some people a little bit to catch on to the close. Halfway through the trip, I might have been the only one that closed a deal. And then all of a sudden, every single person, every closer just starts popping off. And a lot of that is, number one, seeing that it's done, because, I was lucky, I was grateful, and we didn't skip a beat, right? I was going in, my close ratio was super high. So what I was doing was working and then translating that information down to those top 20%. And then from them, they're translating that down to everybody else. And when you have, 4 people that are crushing it on the team, everybody else starts to realize, okay, I can crush it too. And then on top of that, it's even down to work ethic. The best efforts that we put in, I mean, we can put in 20% of our absolute best efforts. And rather than going out knocking 100 doors and just like you're chopping a tree down with a shovel, you can take a chainsaw and put in 20% effort and get way more results than putting in an 80% best effort that you're not prepared for, and you're chopping a tree down with a shovel. You can put in a lot more effort for a lot less result, or less effort but better effort for a far larger result.
Like by focusing on that training and getting that chainsaw.
Focusing on the training. And listen, if you go out and you knocked 100 doors and you got 1 appointment, or if you go out and you knocked 50 doors, but you were on fire for those 50 doors. And I have a whole confidence, of how I get to my most confident point so that I can knock 30 doors, 40 doors, 50 doors and end up with a better result than going out and just blindly knocking 100 doors. So it's if you show up to every single door at 100% effort, or as close to that as you can get, you're just going to net a higher result than, blindly just knocking on doors and trying to figure it out.
Oh, that's gold, dude. I love that, dude. We got one question from Mo. He says, you've been in the industry less than a year and you're running a top team and closing at an elite level already. What do you think you do differently than most people do at the beginning?
That's a good question. I don't know what most people do in the beginning. I know, I came in with an absolute goal in mind, and I would say that most people are probably a flashlight where I'm like a laser, right? Like I'm not distracted by what these guys are doing, what's going on over here, or I have zero distractions. I have one single goal in mind and I'm laser focused on that goal. Became absolutely obsessed. Learned from everybody that came before me that seems to be doing super well. They're doing stuff that I have no idea what to do. And just training my mind constantly, consistently, and just preparing, and having that goal in mind. If you want something bad enough, you will always, always get it. And most people, they have a goal and then they have what they do. And most people, their actions don't line up with what their goals are. And I can't say that mine fully do now, but I know what this looks like, and I'm climbing that ladder as quickly as I can, and I'm more focused than I have been in a long time. So
I love that, dude. And it shows. I remember talking to you like 4 months ago or like 5 months ago on the phone. I'm like, how's everything going? You're like, yeah, everything's good. Man, I just keep looking at Tableau, dude. I'm like obsessed. I look at it every day. I just want to get up there, dude. Like when you say laser focus, it's not a joke. It's not a surprise to me that you were the top team this last trip, because I've been seeing you've been in the gym working out, putting in the work, the training, the metaphorical training, right, to get there, where you've been so focused on like, I am going to be the top. We're going to take this team to be the top no matter what. And like, who's ever on my rocket ship, you're just lucky to have a seat because this is where I'm taking it. Yeah.
And I'm vocal about that to our team. I mean, back in January, I told every single person, like, this is our goal. It goes into our culture. Everybody is aligned with, we are going to be the top team, right? And victory is short-lived. We were the top team this last trip. We're probably going to be the top team next trip.
Let's go.
And, it only matters if you keep doing it. And we're not slowing down. And, we got here. I called it in January. I told Mo the same thing. I'm glad he asked that question. But we just got to keep going at this point, keep getting better, keep training, keep learning, and stay obsessed.
I love that, dude. Okay, Chase Gillip says, how do you manage off-trip trainings within your team? What's the delegation look like across your reps? And how do you make sure all the reps are training and have like a training focus?
Yeah, so I'll call myself out on that. I mean, I'm not I haven't delegated anything to this point. So
You're a dictator. I'm just
I just haven't, you know, I keep telling myself to do that, and I have some conversations, and you know, again, being so laser focused, sometimes you miss out on some of these other things like delegating and having some other people start to carry some of the load, which we're right there. And we definitely have the right people for it. So that's right around the corner. As far as off-trip trainings, you know, I make it a rule. I'm constantly on the phone with somebody at some point. So it doesn't have to be everybody all at the same time, but I have, you know, there's 16 people. I can make 16 calls every single week pretty easily. So I'm calling these people all the time, just feeling them out, seeing where they're at. And then we'll do, you know, I might be on a conversation with somebody, and then I'm like, hey, let me just go to my laptop. I'm going to share my screen with you. And we run like a full 2-hour training, which are like my favorite things to do, because it's just that idea hits. And that's when the excitement is there. And that's when I can transfer that energy in the best possible way. So there's a lot of individual, you know, one-on-one phone calls and just one-off trainings that we do. And the others is, you know, getting everybody together. Usually at least once or twice on the off trip, we'll have every single person join a mandatory call and do like a full on training and try to see where everybody's heads are at. But that works really well because I'm constantly checking in and constantly getting feedback. So we kind of know where everybody's head's at and what they need, and then we can train accordingly.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, we all feel it, dude. Thanks for leading from the front and helping this team. You're part of you're part of an amazing movement, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We got one more question, then we'll end. Is that cool? How are you able to tell a story / paint a picture while keeping it as simple as possible at the door, especially when you're in a neighborhood where people aren't giving you much time at the door? So that's a good question to end on.
I love this question because this was probably 50% of our training on trip was we need to tell a story. Because you can go in with one idea, I can go in with one idea, and if I don't translate, and we're saying the exact same thing,
yeah,
everybody knows what to say on the door. It works for some people, doesn't work for other people. And it's all in their presentation, their conviction. Do they believe it? One of the trainings we did, it's hard to be sold. And not everybody was like, man, I don't know if it makes sense in Texas. We're not saving people money. So I stood up, I called one of our guys who is a homeowner. He pays a utility bill. I went through my whole close because it's hard to sell if you're not sold. So you have to be completely sold on the idea in order to translate that message pretty well. We all have products that we know, we love, we enjoy, and we should be like sponsored because we push that product on our friends and family because we just love it and we believe in it. You kind of have to feel that exact same way about the product you're selling, no matter what market it is. Solar's a better option. Period. If you do your job properly, solar is 1,000% a better option. Even if it's not today, tomorrow, the next day, in 3 years, it will be, without a doubt. And the second thing to that is it's called Toastmasters. Maybe a lot of people have heard about it. They have tons of YouTube videos, and basically they take people who have no idea how to give speeches at weddings and stuff like that, and they just prepare them to go all the way, and they tell incredible, powerful stories. And one of them's called The Power of Words. And they tell an incredible, impactful story that will blow your mind in 7 minutes. Some of them are 5 minutes. So if you're looking at how to shorten something or kind of what that looks like, go watch Toastmasters Power of Words on YouTube, and it'll blow your socks off, and you'll probably learn something.
I love that, constructing a story like that. Okay, last thing we'll do this is for Kurt because we love Kurt.
Yeah, we do.
He wants to see a Texas role play of setting an appointment, a quick Texas role play of how you were setting so many appointments in there. Say they had a lot of teams in Texas too, with varying levels of success too, and want to see kind of your approach with it, if that's cool.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like some water, but.
Here, I got some right here.
All right.
Take some of this. Or you can ask me. I'm the homeowner. You can ask me for water.
Okay. I just did. You just opened the door and gave it to me. It was great. We're off to a great start.
Okay. I opened the door. Hey, can I help you?
Yeah. How are you doing today?
Well, what's going on, man?
Good, man. Hey, I was just stopping by. We've been in this area for a while. I'm sure that you had people knock on your door before talking to you about solar or something like that.
Yeah, dude, we're really not interested, man. You're like the 1,000th person.
You've had a lot of people knocking on your door trying to sell you solar panels for cash and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're just really not interested.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. So this is a little bit different. I'm going to give you the short version. Just give me a quick minute. So you probably got the notices in the mail that you guys are deregulating. Have you seen those notices? It comes with your utility bill.
No, dude.
Okay, so you just don't pay attention. It's just on auto pay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. So, Lubbock, you guys are deregulating, which just changes the way that you guys use your energy. Right now, you're paying one utility company. You're going to have an option between like 40 or 50 different utility companies. And I'll tell you this much, man, they're real good at wrapping a grenade in velvet and throwing it at you, making it sound like it's going to be something great when in reality it's not. So we're just in the area. We're looking for homes that may qualify for a renewable energy source. It is solar, has something to do with just how the power gets to the home, right? So I'm looking for homes that may qualify in this area. I don't know if yours does, but we can stop back by later today, set an appointment with you, and just kind of explain, number one, how the deregulated markets are working, and number two, how you can kind of get away from that and find a better option. What time today is a good day for you, or a good time for you?
Oh, man, we're actually pretty busy.
Yeah, most people are. And I've set a ton of appointments in this area. And we've had a lot of people. I don't know if it's just because you guys are so nice. You open the door, you're throwing water at me. It's great, right? But I set a lot of appointments with people and they don't show. And I don't want that to be you. So I know that you're busy, but this takes 30, 40 minutes max, depending on how many questions you have. And it's definitely something that's going to impact the way that you think about energy. And it's going to impact your decision when it comes time where you guys do deregulate. Were you here when the freeze happened?
Yeah, well, I wasn't affected, but my friends were.
Yeah. And you weren't affected because you're on a regulated market. When you guys do deregulate, it might make sense to look at another option. And that's all I want to do is just show you what that looks like. So tonight I have an opening at 7:30. I'm assuming that you and the wife will be here about that time.
Yeah, we're laying the kids down usually.
Okay. Yeah. Lay the kids down, put them to bed a little bit early. I won't take up too much of your time. Worst case scenario, you're going to learn a heck of a lot about what's happening here. Best case scenario, you're going to look at a better option, and it's not rocket science. It either makes sense or it doesn't. So I'm not going to force you to do anything, but if I come by at 7:30 tonight, just promise me that you'll be here, and I'll come up fully prepared, and we'll go through any questions that you guys have, both you and your wife. What was her name, by the way?
Marissa.
Marissa, okay. So I'm going to see you and Marissa tonight at 7:30. Can you make that time work?
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Are you sure? Because I told you so many people have set appointments and some people don't show up. And when you said, I'm going to see what I can do, what I heard is I'm probably not going to be here. So can you just do me that favor and just be here no matter what? I'm going to be here unless I'm dead or in the hospital.
Okay.
Okay? It's pretty serious. Okay? So I'm going to be here. Just make sure that you guys are. And I promise it's good information for you guys.
Okay.
All right. Okay, I'll see you then.
Nice. Let's go.
Yeah, put me on the spot.
Yeah, give a little claps for Jai on the spot, bro, on the Instagram live. But
yeah,
thanks so much for jumping on with us, Jai.
Yeah,
seriously.
appreciate it.
Thanks for leading from the front, killing it, dude. Leading your team. It's a great group of people. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you guys can follow us, like and subscribe to Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, wherever you get it. This will be uploaded by the end of the week for everyone to get. So
cool.
With that, thanks for tuning in.
All right.